So have you ever felt overlooked for something, of course, you're clearly qualified for? And, just give me a rundown of what happened and what was that experience like?
Yeah, I mean, these are very good questions, Annalisha, that really got me to stop and think about my career and how I've got to where I am. I think over the time, there's definitely been points in times where I felt unsure in terms of next steps.
See it. You see the date in front of you and you feel very confident in saying, yeah, hell yeah, I'm ready I can do this because this is what I've done, rather than, forgetting loads of the little things that you've done that really actually, skills.
Because it's it's probably fallen into one of the questions later on, so I'm not going to get into it too much. But there's always that point, I'll always probably start a new year and I'll be like, right, new year, new objectives. I'm going to really make an effort to try and write down everything that I've done.
That's what Achiever Meter is going to do for absolutely everyone. Help you to articulate and record and have a sort of what we call a proof of everything that you're doing, so you can actually easily share that with anyone or any room that you want to appear into.
I think if I think back to that was my main focus in my early career, and it was okay, I've done that, I've achieved it, and it was right, I'm happy with that now.
I love doing it. Riddle me this. I have keys but no locks. I have space but no room. You can enter but cannot go inside. What am I? Welcome to Voices of Career Reality, the show where we cut through the highlight reel and talk about what building a career actually looks like. No polished success stories, no overnight wins, just real people, real decisions, real moments of doubt and breakthrough, and the honest conversation about what it takes to find your direction and grow in it. I'm Annalisha Noel, founder of Achiever OS, and someone who built my own career map from scratch because the system wasn't designed to hand one to me. This show exists because that experience isn't mine alone. It belongs to every ambitious person who was never given the tools, the clarity, or the proof that they were on the right path. Every episode, we sit with someone whose voice in careers has a different perspective, in the hope to bring value to your career journey. This is Voices of Career Reality. Let's get into it. My guest today is Fleur Summers, an MSIPS qualified procurement professional with a public sector background, co-host of a procurement podcast, The Reform Rundown, and someone who has just made a significant career move, stepping into an associate director of procurement role. Fleur knows this well from the inside out. She's built a career in one of the most process-driven, high-stakes professional environments there is, public sector and procurement. And she has done it while simultaneously building a platform voice that speaks honestly to the profession. But today makes the conversation particularly interesting is the transition, because stepping into a more senior role, even in a field that you know deeply well, even with qualifications and track record, still asks you a question that most professionals are not fully prepared for. Can you actually evidence who you have become, not just where you have been, while also managing one of the best procurement podcasts in the UK right now? This is what we're exploring today. Fleur, welcome to Voices of Career Reality.
Thank you. What an introduction, Annalisha. This seems very weird being on the opposite side. It's
I know.
Us interviewing you as part of our podcast. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. So first question, the value question. So how do you currently explain your value or, articulate your value to someone who hasn't worked with you? You've got all the experience in the field, procurement and public sector. How do you articulate this to people who don't know you within that field or in the new organization that you're working in?
So this, when I sat down and started to think about it, this was a question that really, I really had to try and work through in terms of how I would even answer it. And I guess it's for anyone who doesn't know me, I guess it's the fact that, I've got a background in public sector procurement. That is where I have been working for the past, 16, 17, 18 years, something like that. So, I can talk anything about procurement and regulations. So if you want to ask me a question on that, I could be well away. And more recently, obviously now working in a more procurement advisory and commercial and consultancy space, where I support clients in terms of their procurement requirements and activities. I guess like procurement has been like my focus since like doing my degree. And I think for me, in terms of like the value, it was around when I started to think about it. It was, the value that I can bring is I have extensive background in public sector procurement. I can help colleagues or stakeholders like procure compliantly. I like to build stakeholder relationships because I think that is the main thing. You need to have those relationships to be able to work with teams. You are working very closely with a team as part of doing procurements, and you need to have that relationship and be able to build, because that's how you're going to become a success. So I see like stakeholder relationships as being like a really important element to it. I guess like my other values, trustworthy. I love to be part of a team. I'll always try and find solutions to situations. I'm quite like, people will say, you're not quiet, but I am quite quiet. I like to be quite quiet and methodical and, work through things. And I guess where you're working in like a very highly regulated environment, that's really important to be able to like have that sort of focus and be able to work through things and make sure, we can do things in the right way or come up with solutions where, I've had a number of those sort of conversations where it's like, well, actually you can't quite do that, but maybe we could do this. You try and sort of find alternatives to them. And I think it's those type of things in terms of value that I was starting to think of when I first saw this kind of question.
And bringing that to, your senior team, or trying to have the team that probably you would manage, or even your advisory clients, just trying to articulate, because procurement, we know, is one of those professions that you have to get trust from your stakeholders, and is how we bring them on board. Right, I can manage your project for you from a procurement perspective and help you to reach the goal that you want to get to. It's how we then make them trust us, trust our previous expertise, especially in a consultative environment. So bringing that across. Do you tend to more talk to them about your previous experience, or do you tend to bring forth more the knowledge that you have?
I think it's a mixture of both, because you can bring your knowledge and if someone wants to ask me a question at a procurement act or talk to me about that, then I could talk about, why I think it's a certain way and stuff like that. But it's also around, to build that trust, you might want to build experience, you bring your experiences of what you've done before. So you in so-and-so project or XYZ, we did this and this is how it worked, or have we thought about doing this because over here we've done this before. It's bringing those insights and knowledge that you may have built up over your career and bringing it into the conversations that you're having currently, because that's how you're going to build that trust and support and gain those relationships and build those connections.
Yeah, I agree. And as like you said, the stakeholder engagement piece is bigger than actually doing the processes that you do, really. You can get that down to a key, but dealing with people is one of the most stressful part of any role, I would imagine.
Definitely. And I think in some of like my past careers, or my past like roles, I've actually gone and sat with teams that I'm working with, because it's like, okay, well, I'm working with you to support you on this, so I'm going to come and sit with you, and you feel part of a team. Yeah. And you build that there, because they can just talk to you about things, and you can say, actually, she's human, really.
Yeah.
She's not just procurement, we don't really want to talk to her. She is kind of human, and we can just have a conversation. Yeah, it's those type of things.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Amazing. Thank you so much. So, of course, we always have the overlooked moment, and this is the next question. So, have you ever felt overlooked for something, of course, you're clearly qualified for? And, just give me a rundown of what happened and what was that experience like?
Yeah, I mean, these are very good questions, Annalisha, that really got me to stop and think about like my career and how I've got to where I am. I think over the time, there's definitely been points in times where I felt unsure in terms of like next steps. Like where you've not necessarily been able to see like progression routes or where you can go next. And I think, like, as I found in those situations, it's like important to be able to focus on what you can do, understand and seek like feedback on what you could do in the future, and then use like this to continue developing with a focus on looking to progress, so that when an opportunity comes up in the future, that is something that you are prepared and ready for. I guess it's around, obviously there would be disappointment, and there always is, isn't there? We think, oh, could I have gone for that? Or those type of things where it's turning it around and trying to make it a positive from the situation, as you also never know what opportunities might be coming up that you could support on, which will then aid you in what you were trying to do. And I guess in terms of like experiences like that, there's definitely been points where I've thought to myself, well, I'm not quite sure where do I go from here. I was in quite a long-term role, and it's like, do I stay or do I go and try something where you can't quite see where you're meant to be going. I've been in those situations, and also more recently, or in terms of end of year reviews and promotions and those type of things, and while not necessarily getting what you might want to or hope to, I guess it's around taking that disappointment but then turning it and thinking, right, actually this is what I have achieved, and then look to what I could potentially do going forward.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think why this question is, so important, and love that you kind of articulated that, because, moving into a senior role recently, I think it helped you put things into perspective by answering some of those questions, right? But I think one of the things I'm really precious about, and why I'm building Achievers, is to help people to structure those progression so that they don't feel overlooked. And so it's like compounding things that you would do, simple things that probably lead something or project that you wouldn't really put on your CV, or you wouldn't really, you probably would overlook, but you can have those things and you can see the little bit of skills and knowledge and, validation that you develop over time. Then you can actually see it. You see the data in front of you, and you feel very confident in saying, yeah, hell yeah, I'm ready I can do this because this is what I've done, rather than, forgetting like loads of the little things that you've done that really actually, skills.
Because it's like, and it's probably fallen into one of the questions later on, so I'm not going to get into it too much. But there's always that point, I'll always probably start a new year and I'll be like, right, new year, new objectives. I'm going to really make an effort to try and write down everything that I've done throughout as I go to, so I've got that big record of it. But you don't, do you? You get caught up in everything that you're doing and you think, and you're always coming back to it.
So that's what Achiever Meter is going to do for absolutely everyone. Help you to articulate and record and have a sort of like what we call a proof for everything that you're doing, so you can actually easily share that with anyone or any room that you want to appear into. So it really helps alleviate those kind of
and because sometimes even the simplest or smallest of activities or things that you're doing could actually mean that you've achieved something that you might not have had before. Absolutely. But you don't necessarily think of it at the time that should go, you should have that.
Yeah. I agree. So hopefully, start recording all of your little your little wins. Good. So the skills distinction. What is the difference between the skills that got you your job and the ones that will keep you growing? Or you can talk about it hypothetically in the perspective of how you want to see yourself keep growing, or what have you done previously that kept you growing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you think about it, the skills that got you your job. So I guess that is the main one for me, was obviously getting to my MSIPs, which hats off to everyone who's doing that now, because God, I remember when I went through that, however many exams, I think it took me 7 years in the end, working around a full-time procurement job. It's not an easy, it's not an easy qualification to get when you're doing it that way, self-study. So, everyone who's doing it, keep going, because it is worth it at the end. I know, probably all have wobbles, like I had wobbles where I can't do it anymore. But keep going is all I can say. And I think that's, when you think about the skills that got you your job, I suppose they help you to progress as well, because you're developing on the job alongside doing your SIPS qualifications. And there is a strong focus within the procurement profession around working towards your SIPS and having your MSIPs. And I think if I think back to that was my main focus within my early career. And, it was like, okay, I've done that, I've achieved it. And it was like, right, I'm happy with that now. And I think there was a number of questions. He was like, are you going to do anything else? Are you going to do any more? For keep it going. I was like, level 6, I'm fine. And it took you long, took long enough to do. And I was like, no, can't do anymore. That's fine. And for a long period of time, I think I was there for quite a while. But more recently, I think it's I guess you say moving into different roles, moving into more senior roles. And it's actually, I could keep going a bit more with my, it's like, okay, maybe I should keep moving it forwards. And like I've recently gone through or completed like my chartered status for the MSIP. So now that means that I'm in a position to develop or like look at doing my FSIPs application and become a fellowship of SIPs, which I'm hoping to do by the end of this year.
Amazing.
Which wasn't necessarily something that I had thought of doing previously. Like if you'd asked me 3-4 years ago, I'm fine with just but I think, that's something to always keep. I guess maybe my mindset's changed a bit, maybe in terms of like, what else could I do? And it's one of the things I sort of talk about quite a bit is like staying curious.
Yes.
What else is out there? What could I do? What could I do to keep developing? And I think like if you've done MSIPs, then yes, the FSIPs, when you've been in the profession for as long as I have, and, it's a great opportunity to do. But as I always say, staying curious, look at what other development areas you might, there's many different things, isn't there? And seeing as to whether there's anything that could help you in like your day-to-day working, and always looking for different opportunities to build and develop yourself. But then also share it, you can share your learnings with people you're working with, your team.
Yeah, I agree.
Those type of things.
I'm really big on knowledge sharing. I think people are gatekeepers to knowledge, but I am the total opposite of that. I really love helping people to grow, and I think that's exactly the the mission behind Achiever Meter, Achiever OS in general, is to at scale help people to develop their careers. And there is a knowledge sharing element on the platform as well. Like you say, what you've learned you can willingly share with others who are up and coming in procurement or in accounting or whatever it may be, and share that knowledge with them in our circles as well. Especially talking about continually developing yourself and staying curious, where AI is changing everything and everything becoming orchestrated, and having the knowledge of AI or even technical credibility within procurement is like becoming so important. So looking at the skills that will get you to continue developing yourself is one of the key things. One of the things, again, I'm not really overselling myself here, but on Achiever Meter we have skills taxonomies that will help you understand the key skills that you should develop and the ones that are becoming redundant. So how are you keeping yourself aligned with the market as you continue to grow your career? And the things that will actually keep you stagnant is the ones that is the skills that are being redundant and the one that is being left behind as procurement or any profession keeps forward. So really, really key to continually developing yourself in skills that are really relevant to your growth, but also knowledge sharing. Sometimes like I was speaking again to someone recently, sometimes you start sharing knowledge and you don't even know that you knew that thing. Like the way you start articulating yourself, like you become aware of what you didn't know that because you keep the knowledge within you. So it's nice, like you say, to share, become a mentor or something like that you can actually bring in the next generation.
And I guess people starting out, for example, people starting out on their SIPS journey, you can help them and support them through it, or be there when they're going, how do you do this, or how does this work, or and you can sort of guide them through like the questions they have as part of their SIPS studies, and then that's like sharing your knowledge and things that you've learned and helping them start their career and start moving forwards themselves. But I think it's also like important to look at where do you want to be, and maybe then think, well, what do I need to learn or develop in to get to that place? And that might also help in terms of identifying where you want to sort of
where you want to be. And by the way, that is part of getting your F6, right? Mentoring and sharing knowledge. So there you go. All right, great. The evidence gap. So if someone asks you, I think we touched on this a little bit, but if someone asks you to evidence your last 3 years, let's say, of career development, would you do that on a 3-page CV? Because you typically get, we only want 2 to 3 pages of CV, which I find so annoying, by the way. But how would you then evidence all the things that, the little wins that we talk about? Would you be able to articulate that if someone asked you now?
If someone asked me now, like today, I'd probably say pretty much. But only because of obviously changing roles recently and going through my MSIPs chartered application where I had to work through like all my CPD that I did in the last year, for example. But if you'd maybe asked me a year and a half ago, I'd probably no.
Yes.
You sort of do your CV when you need it, don't you? And then it's updated when you next need it. Yeah. But, recently that did involve me sitting down and really thinking through what have I done in the past year, going through your calendar and thinking, right, okay, so I did that training or I've done that training, pulling that out. But if you there was, like we've been talking about, if you had somewhere that was really simple, you could just put it in as you go in and it's building that record for you, then it would make things a lot easier. I guess in terms of like my career development, only because of having to do my CV for changing roles and stuff, you can see the different things that you've worked on, and that's, I've pulled that together in terms of the projects or the key wins and achievements. But it is difficult, isn't it, to like be constantly recording that at the same time as doing everything. And I'd probably say that's one area that we probably all struggle on, in terms of, we get caught up in like the actual delivery of what we're doing and maybe lose the sight of the small achievements or the wins or the things that we sort of should, just highlight and have detailed. Yeah. It's definitely something that I always want to try and improve on, but then, you sort of get caught up in everything else.
Yeah, I agree. And that's exactly what Achieving Meter helps you do, to kind of, compound all those skills and have that coherent view of that. And then, it's easily articulated for you in there. So you don't even have to do a lot of talking, really, if you are able to kind of share that. So that brings me to the next question. So what would change for you professionally if your skills record was always up to date and verifiable? When I say verifiable, so in the platform we have, you can request feedback from your senior manager, or you can actually put a certificate of something that you've done, a CPD event. So it's all verified within the platform. So if you had that on the go for you to share with anyone that you're in a room with, or potentially want to be in a room with, how do you think that would change for you? You're kind of trying to articulate your skills record to people.
I mean, for starters, you wouldn't have that panic, would you, around to try and pull it all together? If you had it all there, you could be able to look at it, and you'd probably surprise yourself in terms of the areas that you've actually done. All the different like smaller bits of training or stuff, they all build up, and they're all building your knowledge and and developing your skills. And I think not having to go through that process of looking back and working out what you did when and how long was it for and what do you have a certificate, and try and find that. If you had somewhere, like you were saying, that you could just record things when you go, like on the go, I've done this training course, this is the copy of a certificate, this is when it was, this is how long it was. And it, if it's easy as that and it's building up this record as you're going, I think, it'd be much more, you'd be able to then demonstrate how you've developed yourself over however many years, but also it'll enable you to put more focus on your learning and skills rather than demonstrating what you have achieved, because you've already got that.
Yes, exactly.
Focus on finding those things that actually I want to develop in there, or I have an interest in there, and that's where you can then go off and work on that. Yeah, you've already got your record, not trying to pull together your record and forget about all these things.
I totally agree, and again, Achiever makes that possible for everyone. So thank you, Fleur. I love the way that you articulated all of that very naturally about your career transition, and especially how you've just moved over to the new role. So anyone that's listening, take notes of how Fleur did it. Right, so the last part is our riddle. So I love doing this. Riddle me this. I have keys but no locks. I have space but no room. You can enter but cannot go inside. What am I? Keys but no locks. Space but no room. You can enter but can't go inside. This is a true riddle indeed.
No, like
a keyboard. Locks.
I have keys but no locks.
Space and you can enter. This was for you as a podcaster and having like using keywords to communicate and opening your platform to others and opening conversations. So I know you use a keyboard a lot to do things like that.
Yeah, but I was with riddles. I just get stuck on the first one, and then that's what I'm just like a key with no lock. I'm like, and then I've forgotten about the rest of it.
Thank you, Fleur. It was a pleasure speaking to you. The way that you articulated the way that you had to kind of like sit down and look back and understand what your skills are, and kind of record that to be able to then articulate that, and being able to kind of honestly express that, how easy it would have been if you had been compounding those over time. And it does build your confidence, as you say, to be able to articulate that much more easily.
It also helps you do your CV, like if you need to do your CV like quite quickly, if you've got something that you can just go, okay, well, I can pull that out and add it into my CV, it's a lot easier. Yeah, rather than having to sit and really dig back and think about it.
Yeah. And so really the gap is being qualified, one, and being able to prove it. So is, how do you close that gap to be able to then know your value, one, and be able to prove that value, to be able to show it to someone else who has not really seen your work or someone who has not worked with you before. And that is a personal thing. And that's a structural gap that we're trying to, close and make sure it doesn't cost you a promotion or, an experience that probably you would have want to have at a different level. So thank you, Fleur. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. Yeah, and hopefully see you in the next few weeks.
Definitely.
If we're in Birmingham, yeah. Lovely. Thank you, Fleur.
Yay.
Before we go, if today's conversation resonated with you, I want to speak directly to you for a moment. If you're at crossroads, if you're in transition, if you're working hard but not sure whether it's the right kind of hard, if you've been passed over and don't know why, if you have the ambition but not yet the clarity, you are exactly who the show is for, and you are exactly who Achiever Meter was built for. Achiever Meter is a career intelligence platform that tells you exactly where you stand, gives you a weekly action plan built specifically around your gaps, and builds a verified record of your growth that you can take to any employer and in any room that you get into. It's not a CV builder, it is infrastructure underneath your career. The thing that tracks what you actually do, verifies that you did it, and turns your progress into proof. Your career readiness score, your career growth, your next best actions, all in one place, built specifically for you. Go to app.achievemeter.com and start building. Your record starts the moment that you do. This has been Voices of Career Reality. I'm your host, Annalisha Noel. And until the next one, keep building.